Hey friend, Chris Vandeviver here from WhyLogicProRules.com, the website that helps you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro 10. Today in our 30-day series, it would be crazy for us to not discuss how amazing Drummer is. Drummer is your virtual drum performer that lives inside Logic and can play multiple styles of genres, whether it be rock to hip-hop, electronic to percussion, and pretty much everything in between. And Drummer is not just a bunch of static loops that you drag in from a loop library. It's a highly dynamic, evolving performance that you just load up a track, immediately regions start to populate, you can populate more and even have them follow your performances. And you can adjust the performance in real time. It's honestly so amazing. Now today's video is very much a primer on what is Drummer and how to use Drummer. I suspect that many of us are pretty familiar with that. Nonetheless, I think it's important for those of us who are not familiar with Drummer to get acquainted with Drummer. First things first, I have an upright studio bass sound here and let's take a listen to it as Drummer is going to be playing to this basic bass line. Check it out. Cool, and it actually started its life as more of a drum synth sound. But I thought this would be a little more digestible. Let's now load up an instance of Drummer. So I'm going to use key command, option command N, or you could go up to track, down to new Drummer track. But I just want to make sure I'm loading up the style of Drummer I'm after. If we dig into genre here, we have rock, alternative, songwriter, R&B, electronic, hip-hop, and percussion. I'm after R&B. And once I hit create, we suddenly have a Drummer region that's populated, and we can see in the library that we have rows with a description of what style of performance that she plays. In short, modern R&B. And then in the sound section, we can see that she's playing an acoustic drum kit, the slow jam kit. And if we open Drum Kit Designer here, we can see her kit. And I love Drum Kit Designer. I think the sounds sound amazing amongst all the other sounds in Logic. But let's take a quick listen to what some of these drums sound like. Honestly, I think those are awesome. And I'm pretty interested in what's going on pedal board here too. Cool, an EQ, some fuzz, that's interesting. Okay, let's bring this over here so we're in line with our performance. So I'll even adjust the tail end of this region. And let's just get acquainted with what's going on with Drummer here. This doesn't look at all like an audio region or a MIDI region or anything else. And this indicates to us when the different elements of Drummer are playing. So to start, let's just take a listen to what's going on here. Not bad. And we can adjust this performance further either by picking presets or adjusting the different parameters within the Drummer editor here. And you can use key command E to open this or double click on the region. Or if I customize my control bar and display, bring in the editors tab, we can bring that in. From here, we can adjust and adapt Rose's performance in real time, essentially. There's a little bit of a lag, but check it out. I mean, if we pick between these presets, immediately it's adapted. Or we can adjust with this puck between simple to complex, soft to loud. Check it out. And we can push it further by adjusting the different elements of the kit. And each element of the kit has different sliders for different styles of performance. So the kick and snare are combined, and there's 1 through 8, I believe. Let's check it out. So we have up to 8 different variations of her performance, starting at 1. Let's bring it up to 5. And you can even go in halftime or double time. And we can adjust the performance of the hi-hat as well. And the hi-hat doubles with either the toms or the cymbal activity. So if we select the toms, we can adjust between 3 different styles of performance. Or the cymbals. beyond that, we can even offer things like percussion for our drum kit, so claps or shakers or tambourine. And we can also tell drummer how much in terms of fills we want in a performance, and we can adjust the swing of the performance. So let me just dial this all the way up, and I'll play around with the swing as we hear this. It's really so sick. And under the Details tab, we have even more to work with. Now, acoustic drum performers have a little bit less in the Details department. We can either adjust for pushing or pulling against the tempo here. So if we have this pull against the tempo, or push against it. And we can adjust for ghost notes as well. So not the major hits, but the little in-between hits that occur. So let's dial this up as more. Or less. And this hi-hat parameter allows us to choose between open or closed hi-hat, and it depends, obviously, if we have a hi-hat in the mix. So right now it's set to automatic, but we can adjust between closed or open. It's really so slick. One of my favorite features about Drummer is the fact that you can actually have Drummer follow your performance. And that's where I think it all comes together, is that you're able to turn on follow for the kick and snare, and then choose from the various tracks. I actually have a lot of tracks in this session, many are hidden, but I'm going to select my upright studio bass. And now the performance changes to match the performance of the studio bass. Check it out. And this is how slick Drummer is. It sounds human. It sounds like an actual human being is playing the drums. And it seems to have a sense for nuance and detail. And you can even have Drummer follow your performance and then start populating your session with more Drummer regions. And we can do this just by hovering our mouse around the right edge of this region. So now we create a new instance of Drummer, and the Drummer parameters are specific to each region. So if I select this region here and change the performance, we can see that these adjustments are specific to each region, which means that you can have a verse drum section and a chorus drum section. We can also swap drummers or drum kits. So in this case, let's swap the drum kit that Rose is playing. So I'll go into electronic drum kits here, and let's pick the 808 Flex. So it's still Rose, and it's still her style of performance, but with a drum machine instead of a drum kit. That's pretty awesome. But we can also choose to switch drummers instead of kits, and that's pretty cool as well. If we bring our mouse to the gear icon in the drum editor, we can either choose to keep the settings when changing drummers or keep the drum kit when changing drummers. So let's keep this drum kit, but let's pick Curtis now. So all our parameters are going to change because it's a different drummer, but here we go. Okay, let's take a listen. Or if we pick Benny, which is so slick. And then if we go to this gear again, keep settings when changing drummers. So we'll just make a couple variations here. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to pick under alternative, or maybe we'll pick, alternative and Nikki. Cool. So you can see that my settings have been kept the same, even though we switched the drummer. And we have the same kit, but there will be slight variations because Nikki is a different style of performer. I love the versatility of Drummer, and we should examine some of the other electronic drum kits right now. So let's switch over to a hip hop performer. Let's pick Maurice. just so we can see the slightly different arrangement of instruments. We have, obviously a kick, a snare, claps, shakers and hi-hats, percussion elements. But I really want to dig into the details page here because the details page for the more drum machine style of drums offer us more regarding each instrument. So we can adjust for complexity range for each instrument. How complex do you want the kick to play? So let's set the fills all the way and let's set this to complex loud so it's crazy. And let's take a listen and we'll watch how this changes as I adapt each of these parameters. And what makes it great for the drum machines is that you can very much fine tune each of the individual drums, but also adjust for humanization. So how locked to the grid do you want your performer to be? Do you want it to kind of be, a little variation in terms of performance just so it feels more human, or do you want it locked in? And also we can adjust for phrase variation. So let's just bring this down to 0. So it's locked to the grid, and then I'll adjust. Here we go. I mean, drummer is really so fantastic. And I imagine you can imagine how much you can get away with drummer. And it's just so much better than having like a drum loop, that like 4-bar drum loop, whether it's drum machine or acoustic drums. And, you pad it out for 3.5 minutes just so you have a drum kit. But this is so much better because you can actually evolve drummer and have drummer follow you. And then once you're 80 or 90% of the way, you can then fine tune drummer further by right-clicking on the region, going to convert, and then converting drummer to a MIDI region. So at this point, it's still a drummer track, and we can even convert it back to a drummer region. But what's amazing is that you can now dig into the piano roll and fine-tune the performance further. Maybe you don't like where some of the kick hits are placed, or the snare, or the hi-hats. Maybe you want the hi-hats to be a little louder. So in that case, we can click on our hi-hats and drive up the velocity. And just looking at this performance, you can see how much detail goes into each of the performers. It's not that machine gun like if you're hitting a 16th note hi-hat or those galloping kick drums in some punk rock songs. You're not going to get that classic machine gun sound of a drum track that has not been programmed with any sort of humanity in mind. The velocities vary over time. Clearly from the drum editor, there's a lot of detail in terms of how you can adjust instruments and fine-tune them. Drummer is truly amazing. So I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, as always, I highly suggest subscribing to the YouTube channel, Why Logic Pro Rules, or subscribing on the website itself, whylogicprorules.com. Every week I'm posting new videos, new emails, and posts to help you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro 10. Thanks so much.